Hello everyone, my name is Ildefonso de la Cruz and I am the Principal Analyst at Omdia leading the research on critical communications. Today I am at IWCE 2023 with David Adams, Director of Global Business Development at PCTEL. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, I'm glad to be here.
So how did PCTEL decided to engage in the public safety radio testing?
Sure,
industry?
so PCTEL has been offering test solutions for cellular since probably the mid-90s, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And followed the curves, the 2G, 3G, doing everything that's needed, drive test in building. And then one day somebody walks up to me and says, well, what about public safety? I said, well, I don't know, maybe we can. Well, do you know P25, which is a technology? I was like, no. Well, how about a grid test? Can you do an in-building grid test according to fire and building code? No, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
He says, come out and visit me. And that kind of started a whole journey where they educated us on what exactly you need in terms of making sure fire and police radios work in a building and special solutions that are required by code, fire and building code. And we put our first one out and haven't looked back. We're on our 15th version.
Mm-hmm. So you've mentioned in-building.
Yes.
What is driving the growing focus on radio systems working in-building?
So on the one hand, I'd like to say it's primarily education and growing awareness, but unfortunately, it is also driven by unfortunate incidents, tragedies.
Yeah.
So for instance, the codes really started to develop requiring in-building radio coverage for emergency responders after 9/11.
I can see that.
And if you look at that incident, they had problems talking and it caused tragedy more than there was already going to be. Same thing if you look at many incidences in the country, school shootings. There's been so many of those that now schools are one of the most focused on buildings to determine if they come in to save somebody, can they talk?
They're going to be
So
able to
really,
communicate.
it's both sides of it. On the positive side, there's organizations like Safer Buildings Coalition, which we joined to learn. And since then, we're so appreciative of them. I serve on the board as a vice president, and they are amazing at driving the interest and the adoption to enforce that this stuff is done.
This is a very complex environment with multiple stakeholders, roles, and entities. Do they play well together?
So let me contrast, first of all, you take a typical cellular operator, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile. They put the networks out, they hire the engineers, they might sub some of it out, so there's one or two parties, and they kind of work real well together to test and fix problems. But here, first of all, you've got fire officials who are the ones who say you must comply or you don't get your occupancy permit.
Right.
But then you have the people who run the radio system. Sometimes they know each other, sometimes they don't even talk, right? And then you've got the testers who need information from both parties. What is your requirement? What is the frequencies and channels I should be testing? And then they've got the building owners. So you've got 4 or 5 parties that have a very hard time finding each other, knowing who to talk to, how to get the information. And so really one of the solutions we focused on recently is a product called SEOC Central that allows all those parties to have access to each other's information and make it streamlined and efficient.
That sounds very, very interesting. And my last question would be, what are the challenges that you envision in the near term for the community?
So I'll reiterate the last one we just talked about is helping the ecosystem, the parties work together. But one of the other big problems is noise and interference. So this is true for any radio system, whether you're talking about AM and FM radio or TV. But it's particularly true for the P25 and other LMR networks that are used by public safety. They have particular susceptibilities to noise and interference. Secondly, some of the solutions they put in a building, they're called bidirectional amplifiers. Many of those can cause more problems than the coverage issues they solve if they're not done right, if they interact with each other. So again, that's another thing that's driven our latest product put out called SEOC Monitor, which helps radio systems monitor if there's a noise or interference problem. If someone's walking around and testing coverage, can you test both ways? Is it working up and down? So yeah, we try to be very customer focused, driven by needs, unmet needs, and there's lots of them out there. Those are just a few that we're trying to address.
No, very, very impressive work making sure that all those systems, complex systems, are able to work together in order to enable that quick and efficient response.
Yep, great.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. And again, thanks for interviewing me.
My pleasure.
All right.